And joining me now to discuss all of these latest developments is Jonathan Schanzer, Executive Director at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you for joining.
My pleasure.
Let me ask you, could this shift in leadership in Lebanon lead to a reduction in cross-border tensions for Israel, or is Hezbollah's influence too entrenched for any meaningful change?
Well, I think that's the big question with the election of Aoun. We're talking about a man who has spent the last 6-7 years working in the leadership of the Lebanese armed forces. So I think the theory, at any rate, is that we will now add political will and political power to the role of the Lebanese military. The problem is that the Lebanese armed forces are simply not a professional military. They have been unable to keep Hezbollah in check for more than a decade now. I mean, we could actually point back to more than 2 decades of just fecklessness while the Hezbollah gained power. So the question now of whether the Lebanese armed forces can somehow begin to hem in Hezbollah, that's the big question. It's a theory, it's untested, and we're going to have to see what happens now.
So this is exactly what I'm wondering, with Hezbollah reportedly weakened after the war with Israel and the latest developments and the loss of its Syrian ally, Bashar al-Assad. How do you see its role evolving in Lebanese politics after this election now, after this vote today? Could this weaken its grip on southern Lebanon and the border region with Israel, in your opinion?
Look, that's the hope, right? But I think, we don't bet on hope in the Middle East. It's a tough neighborhood. I will say that the loss of the Assad regime has very likely led to a significant reduction in arms crossing over the border into Lebanon. I'm sure that Hezbollah has fewer resources now, military resources, than it had just a few short weeks ago. On top of that, the cash that would come across the border from Iran has probably dried up. Hezbollah, as we know, has been weakened significantly at a leadership level. The top echelons of Hezbollah are no longer. A lot of the weapons that Israel targeted have not been replenished, and that includes some of the longer distance rockets and PGMs. But really, all of those things don't necessarily translate into a Hezbollah that's unable to exert power in Lebanon. In other words, they still have social infrastructure. They still have light arms. Their rank and file fighters are probably still able, if need be, to tangle with Lebanese armed forces or to threaten or intimidate others that may challenge it in Lebanon. So really what we're walking into right now is the great unknown. There is an attempt here to change the political and military order in Lebanon with the understanding that we've reached a crossroads. An interesting opportunity now exists for Lebanon to take back the state, but that will require will, it will require bravery, it's going to require leadership, and right now all of those things are untested with Joseph Aoun.
And the elected president, General Joseph Aoun, is a U.S.-backed figure. What were the stakes here for the United States in this presidential election? The administration must be satisfied with the results.
Hey, look, I'm sure that the administration is satisfied. This was the horse that they backed. Amos Hochstein, as we all know, the energy envoy for the Biden administration, has spent a huge amount of time in Lebanon trying to broker kind of a new arrangement. He was certainly successful in getting that 60-day ceasefire, which will end within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so the question is, does the election of Aoun in some way bolster the prospect of having this ceasefire extend beyond late January? Is he the man that can bring about more calm and to keep a lid on the violence, not just between Hezbollah and Israel, but perhaps kind of that broader regional outlook now of, bringing some stability to Lebanon, minimizing the impact of Hezbollah? These were things that Amos Hochstein didn't necessarily spell out in the brokering of this deal, but I'm sure implied in all of this was a longer-term plan to bring some stability to Lebanon.
And moving on to the presidency in the United States, very shortly, Donald Trump will officially take office. Is there a chance for a last push for a hostage exchange deal before the presidential turnover, in your opinion?
Well, we're certainly watching that right now. President-elect Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Stephen Witkoff, has apparently been taking meetings with regional actors. He's been delivering the message that the president wants a deal done. It's clear why. I think the last thing that Donald Trump wants is an extended crisis that spills over into his administration. If he can force all of the actors to come to the table and broker a deal, I think that's wonderful news. My question really right now on the hostage issue really is just, will a partial deal suffice, right? We're talking right now about a deal that would likely include 34 hostages. There are reports that I saw this morning suggesting that perhaps 20 of those original hostages are still living. So we're not talking about a large number. They're certainly not going to represent the vast majority of those 99 hostages that are still in the hands of Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. So if a partial deal is done, will that end this crisis, or is it just another stop along the way with a protracted war? I think that is not the optimal outcome here. I do think that President Donald Trump wants an end to all of this, and it's really hard to imagine that with a partial deal.
Jonathan Schanzer, thank you very much.
Thank you.